So am I right in thinking then that I was struck when Martin was asking a question earlier, he kept on using the expression the science here, the science of language, the science of linguistics. But is it right that really you have in mind two separate projects? One is what you call linguistics, where the aim is to systematize a purely behavioral phenomenon. And non-behavioral evidence is, as it were, by definition, irrelevant.
Good.
And a separate project, which is to understand what's going on inside the brain, the causes of these, the linguistic phenomenon. And that's a separate science, in your view, and then perhaps some relations between these two sciences, or two endeavors, but they are to be kept distinct from one another.
Yes, yes.
Professor Quine, I'd like to ask you a question that's closely related to some of the things you've just been saying. The question is, you've often said and emphasized, in fact, that the philosopher should not place himself above science. The philosopher should not try to place a priori restrictions on the practice of science. And you yourself have followed this example, with one exception, psychology. It seems in the case of psychology, you have, at least in one way of reading what you've said, been very negative about the prospects of mentalistic or cognitive psychology in favor of behavioristic psychology. And so the question is, shouldn't you, following your own advice, pay attention to what's been happening in the empirical field, where it seems at this point behaviorism as a scientific paradigm has faded away. It's faded away basically for lack of results, whereas the cognitive paradigm, including artificial intelligence, seems to have prospered. And if the scientists have decided that, shouldn't you take what they've decided seriously and jump on the cognitive bandwagon and let the philosophical chips fall where they may?
No, I don't think we should follow science slavishly. I think we should follow it critically and exploit it. Of a piece with this is my a tendency to rub out the boundary between philosophy and science, and in fact to rejoice in the increased interplay that we're getting between philosophy and various of the sciences. I think, and psychology I don't think of as a special case here. I like to think that increased concern of philosophers, some philosophers, with quantum mechanics and informed concern, kind of thing that is happening now. Various graduate students that I've known going over it to the physics department and taking advanced seminars in quantum mechanics. That injection of the more philosophical kind of curiosity and point of view and even discipline in some directions, of a more, somewhat logical kind, might make a difference in trying to make more intelligible somehow this interface between quantum mechanics and classical mechanics and the seeming paradoxes that lie there. I think philosophy does contribute to the sciences. So the relationship that I've had in mind isn't that philosophy should somehow be subservient to science, but rather the negative position that there's no extra empirical access of information of a kind that is more dependable than science itself, to which we can subject science for criticism.
I see that, and I agree with it. But in the specific case of psychology, do you think that we philosophers should be saying to cognitive psychologists that they're going about things the wrong way and that they should be followers of Skinner?
No, I think we should say about some of them that they're going the wrong way, yes. And as for Skinner, I think that Skinner's specific theories are corrigible like other scientific theories. And furthermore, the details of his theories, I haven't, on the whole, felt need for. Conditioning, yes. But my thesis of determinative translation can be read as pointing out that conditioning isn't sufficient to account for translation. And yet we do translate, and we translate very successfully. We couldn't very well get along without it. So, furthermore, I don't think I've been I don't think I've been as behavioristic, early or late, as the prominence of the term behaviorism would suggest in my writings.
Professor Quine, just to clear the record, I'd like to follow up on Ned Block's question. You've always said that the philosopher must work within science. There's no prior philosophy, there is no higher tribunal than science. Would you consider psychology, or particularly cognitive psychology or cognitive science, to be truly a science?
Oh yes, I would. And in fact, what I mean by science, usually in my use of the term in my philosophical writings, is the very broadest sense, Wissenschaft, applying even to history and psychology, sociology even. But then within all that, there are the various gradations of rigor.
Mm-hmm. And would you have reservations about the rigor of the way in which cognitive science is pursued?
Yes, but I think there's a good deal. I can believe that there's a good deal being done in cognitive science that I can approve of, and that is relevant to my interest in such matters as language learning and semantics. Mm-hmm. And that may be instructively brought into relation with neurophysiological findings by people like Hubel and Wiesel, and again with computer theory, the kind of, in short, the kind of cross-departmental integration that Dan Dennett is engaged in. Mm-hmm.
So those are the bits that you actually like. Would you like to say a wee bit about the bits that you don't?
Yes. Certainly, I'm opposed as ever to the uncritical appeal to meanings and as mental entities or ideas. What the a theory of a communication of ideas, insofar as that's not recognized as really a matter of language that can be more satisfactorily studied and formulated without thinking of ideas. Mm-hmm. I would disapprove of those developments still. But I think introspection. Now, maybe this is a turning point, and sort of a point where one might have supposed that I wouldn't go along. Like Dan Dennett, I find introspection useful, important, even indispensable, I might say, as a heuristic in getting at a hypothesis, a solution, an explanation of something that's going on in the physical world, more specifically in the physical object, which is the thinking person. And not at all ever explanatory in the fullest sense that the scientist seeks as an endpoint, although he's often compelled to stop short of it and settle for something else. So heuristic introspection by all means. And that takes in a fair chunk, I guess, of what goes on in cognitive studies that one might be suspected of disapproving of.